everybody, and welcome back to Everything is Fine, Nothing is Ruined. I'll be your host again, the handsome, devilish, roguish, Bishi playboy, Hassan Kennedy. Joining me is the goddamn annoying, waste all your fucking ammo co-op partner you didn't want but are stuck with, Shiva Crane.
Wrong. You mean... No, I guess so. Yeah, that's me!
And of course, our proverbial canary in a mine shaft for zombie apocalypse is Kenneth J. Sullivan.
He kind of is a canary, you're right. That's a good way to put it. See, I thought you were going to make me Sherry Birkin, who's also annoying she can't attack.
No, he's right. I agree with Kenny.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, Kenny's absolutely right. He is truly the expert.
His insight this episode is really...
I consider myself a bit of an expert on Resident Evil. He's a true expert. He was killed in the game. Like, that's amazing. He's actually in there.
Aw, give me a hug, you big old lug. Ow, that's my... Why? That's my neck. Please stop.
You might want to use a...
that hickey is...
You might want to use a defense dagger
go
from Resident Evil Director's Cut.
Well, in case it's not obvious, we're here to talk about the Resident Evil series.
It wasn't obvious, no.
Oh, well...
We announced it. Go ahead.
Wait! Don't start! Over!
I'll take care of this!
Sound like I'm kind of drunk most of the time.
Wow, you are almost a Tristan sandwich.
Oh, Barry. I got actual things to talk about today with Resident Evil.
I don't think so.
If you're all wondering if it's just going to be just us quoting the games and just being shitheads. Well, it's mostly that, but today I have some facts.
I'm a little confused today, though. So from my experience actually being one of the stars of the first Resident Evil game.
Yes, sure, yeah.
And a member of STARS.
Yeah, as I understand it, the game is only about 5 minutes long. I mean, I died after that point, so, like...
Well,
what happens after that? There can't possibly be that much to cover.
Oh my god.
Tell you about my Jill sandwich.
Can we not?
It's so full of mustard. So mustardy.
Mostly mayo.
Oh, dear God. So there's something that happens after I die?
I was implying golden showers with the mustard. Yes, tons. So, if not 5 minutes after your death, there's actually 21 individual things that happened after the first of your death.
That's a very specific number of things.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So
if you really want to know, there was this great little movie that came out.
We're not talking about that. Nope.
Well, you know, my Herman is Silent Hill.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. We are not discussing the film franchise at all.
Although we should at some point, but I'm
trust
that's kind of its own
someday
thing.
We're going to get there. I mean,
maybe that's a Sideshow review.
Sideshow review has yet to do Video Game Month, so guess what, everybody?
Oh, man.
DOA.
You have to do Doom as well.
So tell us, what is Resident Evil?
So, Resident Evil is...
Wait.
Resident Evil.
Alright, now we go.
So, Resident Evil is a survival horror action franchise.
Well, it was.
Well, that's why I had the action in there. So, Resident Evil is actually two things. A, in the beginning, it's survival horror. B, it's action horror in the ending. So, currently the game is in its stage of action horror, in which they actually take more of a standpoint of beating up and killing zombies and making that the draw of the game. As opposed to the original games, which the draw was dodge these zombies, hope you have enough ammo to kill the boss later on, because why do you want to waste your bullets on a zombie? When it takes like 10 bullets, so why would you want to waste that?
Oh man,
and the zombies can come back, so you...
Yeah, that's something I never got as a kid. Like, I never got that, like, you know, maybe I shouldn't shoot this fucking zombie, because it takes like 10 goddamn bullets to take... Like, it takes a fucking clip to take out any fucking zombie.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, oh, maybe I should just conserve my ammo for anything worth fighting.
So, for me, in terms of like our original stories, where I originated with Resident Evil, I have played every one of them except for Resident Evil 6 and some of the offshoots.
So I've played the first one, I think, the most.
Yep.
And
Actually, I haven't played Zero. I just recently watched Zero. So.
Okay. And I've played a chunk of the of Resident Evil 4 as well, which I feel like gives me a fairly decent idea of the spread of the original and the newer sort of state of things.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's sort of my... Oh, and also a little bit of... what was it? Code Veronica?
That was a game?
That was, yes.
That was a Resident Evil game, though,
yes.
right?
That's one of my favorite ones, actually.
Okay, yeah.
So, where I cut my teeth... technically speaking, I started with Resident Evil 2, so that was actually my favorite one of the franchise.
That's fair. I still hear that that's still kind of one of the best ones.
It's one of the best ones, yeah. In terms of the first game I've actually played it on my own, that was Resident Evil Code Veronica X for the PS2. So, for the most part, I played these games either with my cousin or my brother, so we'd always kind of trade off. The first one I ever did on my own was actually Code Veronica X. And in terms of saving ammo, I had a rude awakening when I actually forgot to do that in that game. So there's a point halfway through the game where you're fighting Tyrant on a plane, and I ran out of everything. So I had to fight him with a knife.
Oh no!
I had to fight him with a knife.
Did you take him out eventually?
Eventually. At some point, I just kind of went like I might just start over, but then I realized he was maybe 5 knife hits away. But that's 5 knife hits away.
Yeah. I got real close and personal for that.
Yeah, so just in terms of you guys, where did you have, in terms of the Resident Evil games, what have you played? Just so I know your background in this.
I've already gone through mine. Son?
Whatever that weird side game was where you could pick from multiple groups of people. There was 8 or 9 people, but you formed a party of
Raccoon
3.
City Chronicles, I believe it was.
Yeah. And
was that the weird one that came out a couple of years ago? Or?
Yeah. Decade ago or more at this point.
I'm thinking of something else.
There was actually 2 of them, but yeah.
So it was 1, that, and 4 I played through at least 2 times. But 4 is mostly where...
4 is where it starts to diverge
for me,
significantly, yeah. 4 I think is still really great. It's just that it diverges very significantly from the original game.
It's a straight up shooter.
4 is considered one of the best games of all time. That's, depends on your perspective there, but 4 is considered up there as one of the best, top 10 games of all time. Resident Evil 4 is actually on those lists.
Sure, yeah.
For a lot of people. And rightfully so. That game is pretty amazing in its own right. My problem with Resident Evil 4 is that they kept the Sherry Birkin aspect of it all. And, it's different because you have Ashley in this case, and she's the president's daughter. And she'll at least go and run and hide and do stuff.
To rescue the president's daughter?
Turns out you are. So, yes.
Cool. Good
in fact, in the end, you're on a jet ski with her leaving an island.
You got
pretty
it.
awesome.
Yeah, kind of.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of glad what they did with Sherry Birkin in Resident Evil 6 was grow her up and give her military training, make her kind of cool. Because in the
to put her in the worst game of them all.
Sadly enough, although according to many, the better part of the game is Sherry Birkin and Jake. Jake Wesker, I guess his name technically is. Story because
that's where the giraffe fellatio comes up.
I assume.
Okay.
That's okay.
Anyway. Let's actually get into this game a little tighter knit. So,
wait,
don't
go.
I'm gonna go with or without you. So, go on.
They're taking off. Their pants.
Look, I'm just gonna open these doors, and there's gonna be dogs outside swarming you. Coraline's a zombie dog now.
Aww.
Yeah.
Looks like we'll have to jump.
It's not that. The games.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, Resident Evil. In terms of the beginning, started off, of course, with the original one, Resident Evil. And...
So, that one I feel like is, needs to be dwelled on for certain.
Yeah.
Because, like, it may not
agree.
necessarily even be the best one in the series. It's kind
Not even close to it, I would say.
Yeah,
For-
it's like...
I agree with that too, Sean.
Despite that game, it's this franchise somehow took off. Because, like, when you look back at that game is actually kind of terrible.
It is.
Like, it plays awful, and they keep that same control style in there, and the idea is they're like, oh, well, they're trying to make it more difficult for your survival horror thing. And it's like, fuck you, you're trying to
You mean the
disguise...
controls?
What's that?
The controls are difficult?
Yeah.
No. So, here's what they do with the controls.
Uh-huh.
So, this is the justification, and this is why I think it's brilliant. This is why I love tank controls. And it only works when you have those switching camera angles.
Right.
So, let's say you're running down a hallway. Let's say you don't have tank controls where up is always forward.
Okay.
You have to then switch from the camera angle where you're running to the left, but the camera angle switches to one where you're running towards the camera. You're now running into a wall.
Okay.
And there's a zombie on your ass.
Right.
You get eaten.
Okay.
Tank controls, you're always holding up. The camera can switch, but you're always still running forward.
True.
Yeah.
But when, like, you're just in a room and you need to, like, kill a zombie,
Fair.
there's, like, times where you have to sit and rotate and then shoot and
Absolutely fair.
then... Yeah. And it's just, there's a lot of shit
Not
with,
intuitive.
with those control styles there where it's, like, they kept that for, I think, way too long. And it's one of those, like, flaws disguised as feature sort of things. They're like, woo, this is intentional because of all these reasons. Like, I'm not sure if I believe that.
I choose to fully disagree, but I have a bias, so
That's fair.
yeah. With that said, I mean, they did actually keep the tank controls in some respect. Just in the over the shoulder games, in the action games, they actually moved the tank controls to just kind of being behind you.
Yeah.
So up is still always
Except they're
forward.
gone in 5, right?
No.
Pretty sure in 5 you could move the camera and character at the same time.
Yes, you could.
Yeah.
I think
so
you could
totally
by...
on.
Couldn't you by 4?
No.
No, 4 always had them.
4, in order to shoot
You had to stop and play
your
with your
character would he would have to stop. He couldn't move and shoot.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. Yeah.
In 5 you could.
Mostly because it was designed for the GameCube, and that was not a good controller for that.
Nope.
Fair.
But still one of the better games in the GameCube for sure. Anyway, so yes, the tank controls on their own. You're right. I like them, but yes, they are a hurdle to get over.
Yeah.
So in a way, you're correct. Like it's kind of amazing that Resident Evil took off as much as it did.
Well, like, not even just for the controls. So, like, you look at the actual, like, game itself.
Yeah.
And, like, the game plays like a B-movie.
It's a horror game, first off, which horror games don't really sell. They have never really sold that well.
Really? I thought... I don't know. I guess I'm just in the wrong crowd or something. It just seems like horror games...
No, just for the most part, like, horror games just don't really do well up until, like, these days, where horror games are bigger.
Yeah.
Like, back then, like, horror games were like, I don't want to really play a scary game. I mean, that's,
I mean, horror games also weren't very, very common at that point anyway. Mind you, most video games weren't very common at that point because there was just straight up wasn't really that many at that point.
Sure.
But also, like, the gameplay itself obviously has a very difficult... I wouldn't even say it has a learning curve or anything like that. The game itself is just difficult because it is, you got your survival horror sort of thing. Like we're saying, it takes a lot to actually take out any individual enemy.
Absolutely.
So you have to really think about it differently. Like you can't just shoot every motherfucker you see.
Yep. Some zombies take 12 bullets in the first game.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Which you only have a 15 bullet clip, so
Yeah.
For me,
luck.
it's fuck all that fucking back and forth with the terrible loads.
Oh,
Yes.
those loading screens and all the loading times.
So the good news is that
man.
with the first game being released in the PC just last month, I recommend picking up that version because the load times are like non-existent.
Well, I mean, that was an artifact of the PlayStation era anyway. Like,
That's true,
those fucking load times are just crazy all
Well,
over the place.
yeah, but then it's
regardless.
also the case of like how many times you would hit the load screen was
Yeah.
just off the
Especially
fucking
from the
wall.
amount of back and forth
Yeah.
you have to do through that fucking mansion.
So yeah, this game has a lot of artificial extended time because you have to backtrack a lot. And to its credit, the game kind of does allow you to... It is kind of open world in a sense where it gives you this giant mansion. You got to figure out your way through it, of course,
Yeah.
and figure out how to get from point A to point B. But at the same time, when everything's open up, you can just go everywhere you want to.
Sure.
And everywhere is just open for you. So that's one of the draws of this game, and really when it comes down to it, the other draw is just the fact that it's a pretty heavy, hard game, whereas, conserving ammunition is key.
Conserving saving was key as well.
Conserving your save
I
files,
just remembered that was a fucking thing where you actually had a limited amount of times you could save.
That's why a lot of Let's Players who do Resident Evil games, and the older ones, use emulators so they can save state.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Because...
Can't blame them on that.
Yeah, no, I don't blame them.
That's fucked up.
To refresh myself with Resident Evil 3, because I haven't played that since I was about 12, 13, if that.
Sure.
I had to rewatch a Let's Play of it, just to kind of give myself the runaround of what was this game like again? And the guy save stated, because there's no way you could beat that game in a Let's Play sitting, unless you're extremely good at it. And Resident Evil 3 is notorious because it's randomized for a lot of the stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can actually get the Magnum right away and just win the game for the rest of the game.
Or you might never see it.
You might never see it.
Yeah.
Well, you will eventually see everything in the game, but
okay,
they randomize weapon placements, except for the shotgun. The shotgun's always where it's at. Yeah, beyond that, that's the thing. So the first game, when it comes down to it, gave you this really interesting world. It gave you isolation. It gave you a lot of creepy atmosphere. In fact, I would consider the first one the creepiest of them all.
Oh, it definitely had probably the best atmosphere of all of them.
It was also, even though it kind of has a B-movie plot, it was cinematic in a way that a lot of stuff wasn't.
Sure.
The angle of the camera and some of the lighting in it was...
The lighting is still gorgeous to this day, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the camera angle specifically, though, was really good, because playing through again, I was played through all the Silent Hill games fairly recently. I'm not going to dwell on this, but that was something that I forgot was even a thing, where you had these fixed camera angles in these older games a lot of the time. You don't see that as often anymore. It's not as common.
You really don't.
Because you have camera control more often.
Well, actually...
do analog stick.
And also you have a 3D environment that's entirely rendered, as opposed to just these 3 walls over here.
Well, in the first game, the walls weren't even... Well, I mean, all the backgrounds were hand animated, so...
Yeah, sure,
Yep,
yeah.
it was bad paintings.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's very interesting. So basically, Resident Evil in its own right gives you a very rich world.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why that game did well. Because people played through that game, got to the end, and went, that gives a lot of intrigue, a really interesting story, a little anime bullshit here or there, but...
So we're going to drive in the dirt and... 20th Resident Evil game, guys. We're still talking about Umbrella Corporation.
Well, no, we're not, actually.
You guys want to hear about Wesker some more?
No, he's dead.
Is he actually dead?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, good question, yes.
I mean, the Human Torch isn't dead. Wolverine's probably not going to be dead for too much longer.
To be fair, the final boss of Resident Evil 5 was Wesker, and you do pretty much kill him. You drop him in lava, so...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hey, Hachi could survive that, so I'm sure Wesker can.
Hey, Hachi's...
Oh my god.
Hey,
They're both Capcom properties. Think about it, I think.
No. Hey, Hachi's from Tekken.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, so... let's actually talk about Albert Wesker for a little bit here. So, he is the former leader of the STARS group, the special force made by the police to investigate homicides and weird crimes.
STARS.
Yeah. They're kind of they're actually a branch of them, in a weird way. They're militarized because they aren't really... No, at no point does anybody say, stop, put your hands up, or read the Mirandize rights. So...
I mean, it's kind of hard to do that with zombies.
Yeah, well, the guys coming towards them, they don't say, stop or I'll shoot. They go, oh my god, a zombie, and then shoot him.
I mean, I think that's a fair reaction to zombies, though.
It's true, yes.
Yeah.
Wow, don't consider zombies to be human.
Look, I am a zombie. I was killed in the very beginning of that first game.
Does your character actually become a zombie, though?
Yeah, I'm the first.
Okay.
I'm the first
All right.
zombie you encounter.
Oh, you're the first zombie. Okay.
Yeah.
So you encounter a dead body that's not a zombie at first?
No. You encounter myself, Kenneth J. Sullivan, and I am dead. But then you go into the hallway, and then I come to life.
What was it, Wesker, that killed you?
I don't know. I didn't see it.
Oh.
It was actually a
that's
zombie that killed
too
him.
bad.
I was shot in the back of the head on the pisser. It was really sad.
No, I believe
That sounds like a Wesker move.
I believe the zombie ate Kenneth J. Sullivan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why.
I want to believe.
Anyway, yeah, so it gave you... So Albert Wesker is the notorious villain for every one of the Resident Evil games up until Resident Evil 5.
Which is hilarious because he seems to die every single game.
Yep.
Yeah, for the most part. Like, any game that he's in, he actually does end up dying or befalling some sort of fatal injury.
Like, in the first
respects.
game, he's, like, straight up fucking murdered by Tyrant.
Yep.
I don't remember what happens to him after that, though. Like, I know he dies every game, though.
Yeah, anytime... Okay, so he really only shows up in the ones where Chris Redfield is a part of him.
Okay.
Because he's more Chris's villain.
Sure.
Which is kind of crappy, because I honestly don't like Chris Redfield that much, but that's either here or there. Wesker as a villain is pretty great, because he's a super bureaucratic... He's kind of like the senator in Metal Gear Rising, where he's pulling the strings, but when he comes like toe to toe to fight a guy, he'll just rip you apart because he's got military training, he got the T-virus, etc., etc. He's a really good villain. So Albert Wesker, like I said, does meet his fate in Resident Evil 5.
No.
As far as we're aware, he could come back. Who knows? But in the original games, he's sprinkled in here or there. Most notably Resident Evil 1, where he's kind of the final boss, technically. So that's that. That's Resident Evil. And Resident Evil 2, which is the one I have the softest spot for. So Resident Evil 2... How can I put this? It's weird because it does keep the same aspects of the first Resident Evil, but it gives you a bigger, more open setting. It's the only game that Shinji Mikami scrapped and then brought back.
Yeah, and then there's that weird Resident Evil 2.5 thing floating around.
Yeah, that was a weird thing.
The fans are still trying to finish, I think.
Yeah,
was that like a remake of 2?
No, it's the scrapped. So with Resident Evil 2, they basically had the thing like half done, decided they didn't like what it was, threw it all away, and 2.5 is that the fans then pick that up and they're like, we want to finish this.
Oh.
And they went, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
whatever.
it's
sure.
Resident Evil 2's got a real weird history that is worth reading about.
So basically, Resident Evil 2, like we said, was originally scrapped to make room for a better version of Resident Evil 2, and you can kind of tell, like from what they showed in like the original like footage for Resident Evil 2.5, doesn't look that great. It looks just like more Resident Evil 1, but with new characters. So Resident Evil 2, the problem they have there is they actually streamlined everything, made it more like a direct point A to point B kind of game, and give you small mansions here or there. So you like the police station, and then the Umbrella Laboratory, that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so they give you small mansions to work through instead of one big one. With Resident Evil 2... The problem there is that they actually do move towards the action side a little more as well. It's not as creepy.
Well, new characters too.
New characters as well. With Resident Evil...
Tell you about my Claire sandwich.
Oh, God.
So Claire Redfield is actually my favorite character in Resident Evil series, and kind of my favorite female character in video games. She is fresh out of college. She's just coming home to visit her brother, that kind of stuff. And she's a tough gal who drives motorcycles and like beats up dudes in bars, basically. So she gets to Raccoon City. She first meets Leon Kennedy. Shit goes awry. Realize there's a zombie apocalypse happening, and now they're thrust into fucking fight these zombies. And holy shit, we gotta now stop this giant monster from killing everybody in the vicinity, and now this little girl's in danger, and all this other bullshit. Yeah.
2's got Nemesis, right?
Nope, that's Tyrant.
Or Tyrant.
3 has Nemesis. Resident Evil 3 also has an interesting little history as well, because Resident Evil has a history of changing the game just a little bit. Like, it's always the same game, but with little tweaks here or there. And Resident Evil 3, I can actually kind of claim is my first real foray into roguelikes, because that game, like I said, changes the items entirely. So we'll find certain things here or there. Like the puzzle items are pretty much always the same, but the puzzles themselves will basically change for the most part.
Like the layout of the game doesn't change, though.
No, the layout's always the same.
Okay.
But like the weapon placement and the ammo placement is always different, with the exception of the shotgun, I believe, and some ammo placements here or there. It's also the first game that lets you switch characters mid-range of the game to actually go with a different character. Resident Evil 2 did it as well, but in this game it actually does... how can I put this? It gives you a very capable character to switch to. Whereas in Resident Evil 2, it gives you either Sherry Birkin or Ada Wong, who is capable, but she just doesn't have the stopping power of your original characters. Like your Claire Redfields or,
Chris, Leon,
there
Bill.
we go.
Oh, okay.
I almost said Luke Perry. I don't know why.
Luke Perry doesn't show up in Resident Evil as far as I'm aware.
I don't know either. Yeah. No, you're Leon Kennedy.
So let me tell you about my fan fiction story about my Luke Perry Jill sandwich.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it at all. Yeah. So you can kind of jump past Code Veronica, because that one is just kind of more of the same, but it's just a very good version of Resident Evil. Code Veronica is a very beloved version of those games. It stars Claire Redfield and Chris Redfield on top of that.
Now, what would you say Code Veronica is closest to as far as the previous games up to this point?
It's closest to Resident Evil 2.
Okay.
But with a healthy dose of like Resident Evil 4 in there as well.
Okay.
Because the idea there is that you switch places pretty rapidly.
Okay.
Like it gives you a really big mansion / graveyard / military complex to go through.
Right.
So it's one really big area, but it takes like no time to get through it. You can get through it in about an hour and a half if you're really good at the game. And then it goes from there into a second part, which is another military complex. After then you actually play as Chris there to actually rescue Claire / what's his name? Benny, Billy, the redheaded kid nobody likes.
Oh, that guy.
That guy. The
Chrono.
Guy, yeah, basically. He has 2 golden pistols and he's a little shithead, so... Yeah.
Oh, that kid with the little fucker with the golden guns.
Yeah, he sucks. Anyway, so it's got a lot of similar stuff. So you can kind of tell where they're trying to change the game a little bit. Also, that's the first iteration that has 3D movement, so the stick actually works properly to move your character.
So now you can properly be Mila Jovovich jumping through laser beams.
Oh, right, of course.
You cannot. Yeah, she is not in any of the movies. Or games. She's not in the movies, though. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, up here.
Multi-pass.
Yeah. Multi-pass. Then there's, of course, Resident Evil 0, which actually gives you 2 characters you can constantly switch between at all times in the game. There's like one time where you can't do so, and I think it's because Rebecca Chambers gets stolen by a bug. I think it's actually pretty funny. I have not seen that game until recently. So there's a great boss fight where you have to play as Billy Cohen, which is the other guy you switch to, and he is like a thug ex-military dude. He's actually going to jail for like murder or like some sort of treason, and Rebecca Chambers is part of the Alpha Team. In Stars, and she is there to actually investigate the technically the Arclay Mountain mansion, but she's eventually going to go to the mansion which takes place in Resident Evil 1, so it's a weird connection thing, hence the 0. So yeah, in that game basically what you have is two characters that run around and help each other at all times. That's where you get like the boosting mechanic from like Resident Evil 4 and onward, where you boost another character up into an area and they go do their own thing. And in this game, like I said, the only time that doesn't you don't really have both characters is when Rebecca Chambers gets stolen by a bug, literally like hugged onto by a bug, and carried around while Billy Coleman has to try and shoot the bug. It's stupid. It's a giant centipede thing too. It's really dumb.
Wow. Okay.
I kind of recommend looking it up because it's funny looking as hell. Like it's so dumb looking.
Now, if you're going to look up anything, you should just look up Resident Evil voice acting. And that will be...
I mean, sure, but everyone knows that.
I know. That just sort of kills me even to this day of how awful that fucking voice acting was. And I talked about this...
Go back to the early 90s in general.
No,
yeah, real bad voice acting.
I'm aware. Like, the thing is that cartoons and video games were not taken seriously, so you ended up getting some pretty fucking, like, Z-list voice acting in pretty much all of them.
Yep.
So it's sort of like...
And a lot of them, it was just the staff.
Yeah, totally. Like, it's just like, these fuckers, we don't want to have to pay someone else.
The original voice actor for the guy in Silent Hill...
It's like some guy's dad or something?
Yes, visiting on a business trip that they recorded it all over 2 days.
You got it.
If I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god. And, like, the thing is that, like, the Silent Hill stuff is pretty bad, but, like, it's not even as bad as the first Resident Evil. I don't know, that always just sticks with me just because that game is like, when you really break down its elements, it does have some really great atmosphere, it has some really great moments, and the story and the plot is actually kind of neat. There's some really interesting puzzles, although some of those get kind of old really fast, but it's just so hard to take it seriously with all that voice acting.
It's true.
All that goofs. With the remake, is that changed?
Yeah.
Yes.
So they do update the voices.
Yeah,
they
totally
updated that back in the GameCube version.
Oh yeah.
Yep, in 2002. That's right.
Did they change up the live action cutscenes at all?
Yeah,
Yes.
they're just gone.
Are they?
They're not entirely CG. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Technically, the remake is a better version of that game, but it lacks those little charming things like the bad dialogue and the FMV cutscenes.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they were still there, but...
yeah, maybe a little bit. Or even, like, do them again and update them. Because, like, I understand why they would have done the FMV stuff initially, because, quite frankly, at that point in time, you couldn't make a very realistic-looking person on the PlayStation.
It's true.
Like, what was our most realistic... rendered thing at that point.
Kind of actually...
Polygon Man.
I was going to say Polygon Man.
Polygon Man.
Damn it! Beat me to it. So, also another thing I was going to mention about the first Resident Evil was that there was actually no 180 turn in the original version. So Resident Evil has always had a 180 turn, just like flip around your character in case there's something in your back.
Right.
You can just turn around and shoot it or get away. And in the first game, it didn't actually have that.
Yeah, because you had to slowly turn around to the enemy.
Yep.
You had to hit the I'm going to turn button and then slowly turn to the
Hence
enemy.
why everybody just ran into walls diagonally, so you can just kind of scrape along the wall to run past a zombie. That's still used in speed runs in like the later games as well.
Oh, I'm sure.
Of course, up until like Resident Evil 4, when that game is, you plant your feet and fight a wall of dudes.
All right, so I think I sort of derailed you. So I think you were just about to get to Resident Evil 4 in the chronology.
I.e.,
here.
the best version of that game, because it's one of the only ones that was sold under the better title of Biohazard. God damn it!
That's true.
What?
Such a good. In Japan, the games are called Biohazard, but they couldn't release them as Biohazard here because of a weird copyright law.
No, Biohazard makes so much more sense. Okay, I'm going to go on a little diatribe here. So I think the Resident Evil series is great, but I feel like. So the first game was called Resident Evil. You were at a house. Evil lives here. Resident Evil. That's kind of what that implies, right? No other game really fucking does that anymore. You have micro mansions and stuff as you go through these other sort of things.
Yeah.
But the name stops really being relevant, especially now.
Absolutely not relevant at all.
It's so irrelevant now. But the name Biohazard, that's fucking perfect.
Yeah.
That's fucking perfect. Like,
Such a good name, too.
That's a good name.
Resident Evil 2 and onward should have just been called Biohazard.
Yeah.
I don't know why that would have been a copyright issue here. That's so bizarre.
There was already a game or something.
there
I
was- yeah, there was
cannot remember the
game.
exact
I just fucking
reasoning
love
off
it though.
the top of my head.
Like hazardous materials, or
And then,
like
so I want to say
something like
they
that. I don't
then
know.
try to, around
know.
3 or 4, they wanted to make just the series internationally called Resident Evil, but then somebody had beat them to the punch or something
Yep.
in Japan, so that they now can't call it Resident Evil in Japan. So it is perpetually this
Yep.
weird Resident Evil / Biohazard name title.
That's right. It's so dumb.
ridiculous.
It's too bad.
Man, I'm so pissed off that it's not called Biohazard here, because
No, I
that's
know.
so much
Really
better.
good name.
That's
It's
a
a
very
better
good
name. It's true.
It just sounds better too. Like Resident Evil sounds pretty cool.
Yep.
Like that sounds pretty great, but Biohazard, like it just it implies so many things that the name Resident Evil doesn't imply anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway,
Like Resident Evil as a name, like I said, implies evil in a mansion.
well, not even just
Biohazard-
like just like Resident Evil to me, that's sort of like you can translate that more or less as evil lives here. Like evil
Yeah.
is here. But like when the here air quotes is an entire city
or just
Or
the
it's
planet.
Spanish countryside.
or the Spanish countryside,
or China, the Himalayas,
it's,
Germany at some point.
it kind of loses all its meaning and it just becomes a name, right?
Yeah,
like it's just
totally.
sort of like we'll just tag this name on because we don't have anything else to call it anymore.
Yeah, Resident Evil is no longer a relevant name at all.
Yeah, it's so, oh man.
Yeah, like Biohazard is actually a better name because it also implies the fact that all the monsters you fight are mutants.
Yeah, totally.
So, like, that's the thing. Like, they are biohazardous materials implanted in these creatures and people to give them mutations, mutant abilities,
Totally.
etc. And that's why you're fighting them. So, yeah, with Resident Evil 4, that's right. It should have actually had the biohazard name, but
If you buy it on Steam, it does.
it does. Yeah,
Is it really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh shit, yeah.
totally.
Oh nice.
Yeah, but so Resident Evil 4 is the biggest departure from the series.
yeah, that's where shit starts to go fucking bananas.
Yep, goes bananas, and it still maintains a very good semblance of the plot structure and storyline. Has very little of the what I call the anime bullshit. Even though
You fight
Really?
Napoleon with a bunch of giant insects.
yes, no,
That
no.
sounds like some anime bullshit, if ever there was any.
Hear me out. It still has quite a bit of it. Yes.
I'll hear you out on this, but I do have. I'll see where this goes.
So it's not as bad as, let's say, Resident Evil 6, in which
Well, that's fair.
every villain is a cackling, maniacal, evil person.
Yeah. Okay.
And then also everybody just German suplexes because why not? Because anime. Resident Evil 4, basically, you can still do, the German suplexes and the drop kicks and that kind of stuff, but it's not as hyper implied they should do that stuff. It's like, yeah, of course you should kick this guy down the stairs instead of shooting him in the face, because that way he'll tumble down and knock his friends over, and that way you have an out. But like Resident Evil 5 also is just rampant with like, yeah, shoot this guy in the foot, then drop kick him in the face, and like explode his head all over the place. Resident Evil 4, it's not quite like that. It's a little more subtle.
Well, it's kind of weird that, like, I really like Resident Evil 4, and it's
Sure.
such a big departure. It's much more of an action shooter game.
It really is, yeah.
But it's weird that such a high mark of that series, because it's so good, it became a fairly popular and well-selling game,
Yep.
which simultaneously kind of destroyed what that series was up to that point,
Well,
and
it
has
leaves it to
caused
rails it, yeah.
and has caused Capcom to kind of continue to chase that dragon of trying to make it this big popular game that people love, instead of what it started out with, which was like a well enough game, but it certainly was not a pillar of gaming or a notable frenzied release for people.
The
Yeah,
weak are
So
meant to
it's kind
be
of
killed.
weird that, and also like in a lot of ways, it's probably the most polished and refined of the games. It probably plays the best.
That's true.
easily up to that point,
So
and I
it's-
would assume onward as well.
5's fairly all right. But they
Yeah.
tried to make it 2 action, so it's a little bit shallow and empty. in
Yeah,
some
when they
ways.
chase that dragon, they
it's
kind of ran
lacking the
past that
depth.
dragon.
So
So it's weird that this like really cool turn and pinnacle moment and awesome thing is like, it's not its fault, but that's kind of the thing that destroyed the series.
Oh, it really is, yeah. Like, Resident Evil 4 is still, again, great game. Fantastic game. I really should buy a copy of it at some point. I've only ever, played, I think it was Tim's copy or whatever. But,
I think I have it for the Wii, if you ever want to give that a whirl.
Yeah, maybe.
Wait, does the Wii version have the same thing that the PS2 version has, where if you beat it on normal, you can then get the special suit of armor that makes the girl invincible forever?
Oh, yeah!
That's the best part of that game.
I honestly don't know.
Making it actually invincible. Oh my god.
Does she, walk around in plate mail?
Yes. And
Great.
then anytime a zombie tries to pick her up, it just dies. Because the weight of it crushes them.
Yeah, exactly.
So a viable strategy is to literally do nothing, let the zombies try and continually attack her, and they will die.
Yeah, Los Plagos just
Los Plagos. That's also not that game's fault either. That's where it begins the weird bullshit of every subsequent game of they're not zombies, they're this weird thing we made up.
Except for RE6, because RE6 is explicitly, we have zombies again!
Which is weird, because are they T-virus zombies? Aren't they something
G-virus.
different? Yeah. See, it's... God fucking damn it. They took the elements of the game were cool, and then they went, let's fuck it all up from here.
A little bit. So
wait, they're not zombies? I don't remember. In the fourth one, they're not zombies?
They're not, no.
What are they?
Mutations.
They are mutated versions of that bacteria that can, pseudo-control birds and stuff.
Yeah, they're kind of like cordyceps. Yeah. They're kind of like mushrooms. The thing there is that they... so basically they implanted this village as a test village.
Yeah.
Filled with this black bacteria. They put it in the water, I believe. And when they drink the bacteria, of course, and then just latch onto the brainstem, and now they have their own little army. So, when I can't remember the name of the villains in that game because it doesn't stick with me as well. But when the villains actually,
Just remember Napoleon, basically.
Yeah, little Napoleon
or wannabe Napoleon.
Yeah.
It's not actually Napoleon because he's clearly dead.
Of course. So in Resident Evil 4, the story is that basically of, the president's daughter has been kidnapped. Are you bad enough to do to get her back, basically?
Yeah.
As we've said. And the answer is yes, because you didn't do so. And the bigger answer is, can you actually escape this island and then knife fight this awesome guy with your knife? And the answer is also yes. Resident Evil 4 is also a big departure in the sense because it was the first game to have QuickTime events.
And I didn't like the QuickTime events in it.
So
the QuickTime events become really shitty in the Wii version because a lot of them become stick waggling.
I bet.
As opposed to, I'm not sure what the QuickTime events are in the other games.
They were never good in the...
that's even worse then.
They're also...
So I'll take stick waggling.
In
it's
retrospect,
very quick. The timing that you have to be very quick to respond to stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So most of those QuickTime events, you're just going to die repeatedly just to memorize the button patterns.
Yep. And the worst thing is they will actually change them on you, too. So sometimes it's AB, sometimes it's XY, sometimes it's LR.
Right.
Oh, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Back in the day, those QuickTime events were really fucking good and really interesting because what it gave you was... actually, MC Chris says it best in one of his stand-up bits. This ain't no cutscene, press A, motherfucker. Basically, when the game surprises you and says, "Oh wait, shit, this is not a cutscene. Don't just watch this. You can't put your controller down, walk away, and make a sandwich. You gotta make sure you're paying attention because at some point somebody might try to stab you in the face, or a bug might try to latch on your face and then give you weird brain hug cancer." But so the QuickTime events were a big deal.
Yeah. And then they continued to use those in RE5.
Yep.
Where by that point everyone was sick and tired of them.
Really bad in RE5.
God damn it. Nobody wants these anymore.
For the point where cutscenes started to become popular in games in general?
Yes.
Is that the one that popularized it?
Kind of. Well,
Metal Gear Solid,
like
QuickTime events, just in general.
Up
to that point, how common were they?
Shenmue.
By the time RE4 came out, they weren't everywheres, but they were growing. By the time that RE5 came out, Because don't forget, RE4 came out relatively late in the GameCube's life. I want to say 07 or 08?
Yeah.
No, it couldn't have been that late because the Wii would have been
RE4?
05?
RE5?
Yeah, 05 is when it came out, I believe.
Do you mean RE5 or RE4?
RE4.
It was 2004.
2004? Okay. By the time RE5 came out, everyone was tired of it. RE5 is... It's a weird game, because gameplay-wise, it plays fine.
Yeah.
In fact, it plays better than 4 in a lot of ways, but then in a lot of ways, it doesn't, because by the time it came out, there were plenty of other games that had done 4 better, and it doesn't do a good enough job leapfrogging those other games, so it's like... A lot of people shit-talk RE5, and that game certainly has its problems.
It does,
but... I mean, that is the downward spiral of Resident Evil towards being these action games, and, hey, look, Wesker's back in. You're like, fuck, I don't care.
Yeah.
He's come back so many times.
RE5 has a lot of problems, namely...
It's a fine enough game.
No, it's a fun game, yeah.
I'm playing it.
I think it's a good game. I own it. I have the actual special edition for it. I think it's actually a pretty fun game. In terms of where it goes wrong is where its story lies. It basically has a few too many like turret segments in it, that kind of thing.
Well, it's symptomatic of the times.
Exactly, yeah. But I mean, like they did just basically, they more or less just actionized Resident Evil. And that's fine if they wanted to do that, but the biggest draw for Resident Evil, even Resident Evil 4 had this, was the survival, elements to it, where ammo was scarce. You had to like kind of pick your targets. Headshots were a big deal.
Hey man, they made your ammo scarce by letting your AI companion waste it all on you.
Hooray! Resident Evil 5, yeah. Well, that's why in like Resident Evil 5, it's recommended that you give Shiva like the stuff that you're not going to use, like the TMP and that kind of stuff. And you use the shotgun in your pistol. Or whatever you're
you monster, using a shotgun.
What is wrong with you?
It's a nice day for
what are you
shotgun.
I never liked shotgun. TMP, actually.
Actually, the TMP is pretty good in Resident Evil 5. I can't even talk.
I've never liked shotguns in games. But, like Resident Evil, I think, in the Resident Evil 5, I should say, give it probably another... decade, so long enough that the people who seem to shit talk it a lot will have largely forgotten why they disliked it, and a group of people who perhaps never really played it or who were too young to have really played it will have grown up liking the Resident Evil series. I think that's going to be the one that nobody really talks about. It's like, here's how we feel about 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 was okay. And 6, oh god, that thing's terrible. So it's really one that kind of there's the least to say. It's like, well, it's got its problems. And yeah, it's kind of indicative of where that series started to go wrong. But it's alright.
Yeah, it's like, so when RE5 came out, people were shit-talking that. But now that we've seen RE6 in action... Everybody's kind of like, no, give us back RE5.
We'll take it. We're so sorry.
Oh, God, no, that more
take away the giraffe fellatio already.
Okay, I'm assuming at some point someone makes a joke about giraffe fellatio.
Do you not know this?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, look up RE6 logo and tell me what you see.
Yeah.
Oh, that... Okay,
the 6 is in the shape of a giraffe and blown.
Totally, yeah.
And it's a weird thing where the first time I saw it, I was like, that kind of looks like a woman giving an animal a blowjob, and then you go on Twitter about 2 hours later and you go, oh, I'm not the only one who sees this. Okay.
Then Capcom's kind of like, shit. Fuck, we did it again. First was Okami, now it's this. So basically, RE5 gets a bad rap, and that's too bad, but, it's better now because RE6 is out, we have it to compare against a game that's actually truly bad. RE6 is rampant with... I can't use now Finn logo. RE6 is rampant with just kind of really bad amounts of just a storytelling... like the actual gameplay segments are not very fun.
The storytelling's terrible. The gameplay is also all over the map because you play 3 or 4 different characters. You play, what, Leon?
Technically 6. Even
Alex Wesker.
Yeah.
Chris.
Jake Wesker.
Or Jake.
Yep.
Chris... is it Jill or Claire you play as?
Jill. Or, sorry. No, you don't play as either the... You don't play as either of those two.
Who's the lady you play as? I can't remember.
B something. There's actually 3...
There's so many fucking characters. It's just... It's this giant mess of a game, and we probably shouldn't dwell on it too long, because,
Ada Wong is like a villain, but she's also got a twin sister. Ada Wong was made in a test tube. Ruining that plot for you, because I don't care.
So, here's the light at the end of the tunnel of kind of like people's bad reaction to 5 and then bad reaction to 6, is that somehow someone at Capcom realized, well, we don't know what to do with this game, so let's just put out these weird side things now, which is actually where that series has started to take a turn for the better that I don't think anyone ever expected, because I would say, because there was that, I don't even remember what it's called. Outbreak in Raccoon City?
Outbreak, it was the
that people actually ended up liking.
Yeah.
But the thing that people really ended up enjoying, which I think no one expected to be the, like, wait, this is the savior for the Resident Evil series, was a 3DS exclusive release where you're fighting weird, what's the word I'm looking for? Oceanic?
Fish monsters, basically.
Yeah, fish-based monsters on a cruise ship. Resident Evil Revelation, it's just the weirdest when you look...
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, actually...
But no one expected it to be, because again...
I'll have to look into that.
So actually,
3DS exclusive that then got released on other platforms after.
It's on Steam now, too.
Yeah.
So what's cool about Revelations, actually, is that it's Jill Valentine. She gets her own game for the second time, actually.
Nice.
Third time, if you count Resident Evil 1. But Evil, she's been in Resident Evil 1.
Well, you can't play anyone else in Resident
Jill
Evil 1. It's just Jill.
Chris, of all things, isn't it?
No, not in Revelations, no.
No.
She has a female partner, I can't remember her name is.
Okay.
But for the most part, you're actually alone. So it's another game where you're actually by yourself entirely. You are the sole combatant, for the most part, on this derelict ship.
All I'm thinking of is like fucking dolphin zombies, but like they have like human bodies and just like dolphin heads.
Cool, actually, what's cool about Revelations actually is it's a little Cthulhu. It's a little bit like everything's kind of tentacleized. Everything's a little more like we have piranha heads, that kind of stuff.
Nice.
The monsters look really cool.
It's also they kind of embrace the fact that the storyline has just gotten such convoluted mess and just go, I don't know, why don't we just make it a bigger convoluted mess, because who gives a fuck anymore?
Well, seriously, like the best way to embrace something like this, instead of like doubling down, like, okay, so now they're not zombies or something or what the fuck ever. Yeah, start just fucking rolling with that. Like, you can go anywhere with this. Like, the original, is it the T-Virus was originally?
Yeah.
This fucking shit has just gone bananas and is all over the place and has been infecting everything, and it's this crazy super virus.
You just described Resident Evil 6.
Yes. Well, okay, fine, but like, let's take this to like, I don't know, maybe like we essentially have Resident Evil the Birds. So it's like now...
Fuck, god damn it.
There are already zombie crows, so...
Okay, fine, but let's take it a step further. So it's like, kind of like, Hitchcock the Birds, except fucking Resident Evil.
Sure.
It's like, oh shit, these birds are all over the place, and I don't know, maybe it has a different sort of thing.
You're on a mountain.
You're on a mountain, yeah, you're fighting birds on a mountain or something.
You must escape to the beach and then have a picnic.
I actually had this...
God damn it, don't remind me of Birdemic.
Exactly.
Oh, yes. No, remind us of Birdemic.
No, I know, right?
Oh, my God.
Anyway, yeah. No, birds are, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like, just start fucking with the concept a bit.
So, here's the thing. If you like that, when you get to Resident Evil Revelations 2...
yes.
One of the characters is Barry's daughter.
Yep.
Okay.
And Jill is there. And at one point, Jill says... Is it not Jill?
It's Claire.
Or it's Claire, yes, that's right. No, it would have to be...
No, it's Claire.
Right, yes.
So it's Claire and Barry are the two main characters.
Yeah, and so she ends up saying...
daughter?
She goes,
okay, yeah.
Aha, look who's the master of unlocking now. And her daughter just goes, oh god, Dad says that to everyone, huh? Or Jill says, I was almost a Jill sandwich.
I was a Claire sandwich.
Or I was almost a Claire sandwich. It's like,
That doesn't make any sense for Claire to say this shit, though. Like,
it's very tongue-in-cheek. Like, they finally by the time that, once they realize, like, oh, wait, people like Revelations 1, all right, let's just double down on 2. It's like, all right,
so I gotta play these games. This sounds good.
The problem Revelations 2 has, I recommend waiting until Revelations 2 is done.
It's an episodic thing. Although it's coming out super quick. Like, they're coming out every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, which is crazy.
Wow, yeah.
So, there are only 5 episodes. It's only $20, and like the first episode is, I think the first episode is actually free.
Oh, cool.
Or something like that.
No.
It's a weird thing. There is part of it that's free.
I think it's a good way to do these like chapter
models. The raid
models
mode is actually free.
I don't know.
So the raid mode is actually the survival mode in the game, but it's actually free. It's free to play.
Oh, okay.
So you play it, but you also have to spend microtransaction bucks on buying stuff for the mode. Which is too bad, but the real draw there is actually the story. I heard that the second part of the story is actually much better than the first.
I've heard such mixed things.
Me
where
too.
I've heard people say, I didn't like the first, the second's better. I didn't like the second, but that first one's really good. So, I don't know. See, that one's a real weird up in the air.
Weird. Yeah.
So another thing I think is a really big component of the series, and the first one accentuates this, and it gets lost as time goes on, is this whole idea of like this split narrative. So in the first game, like, you know, you can play as Chris or Jill.
Yep.
And you kind of get a different story depending on which one you're playing as. Chris runs into that like that chick early on. I don't remember her name.
Rebecca.
Is it Rebecca? Okay. So he runs into her. Jill doesn't. Jill keeps running into Barry. Barry keeps on running into her.
Exactly.
I guess more to the point.
Yes.
So you're getting the split narrative. In the second game, you end up with who is it? It's Claire and
Leon.
Claire and Leon, and Claire's with Sherry Birkin, and Leon's with Etta Wong.
Okay, yeah. So like you end up getting like this like split narrative thing, and then when it gets to say 4, that kind of stops.
Yep.
Right? Like that's not common anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
There is a segment where he plays Ada, isn't there? Like crazy, but it's not really.
Yes and no.
It doesn't really affect the story.
Exactly. It's actually Etta Wong's like extra missions in the remake version of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
there's
what
actually
is.
2 versions of the game. So I think it was in the PS2 version. You have to play as like Ada's missions,
something like
which
that.
Are, like,
they're not. Yeah, they're not story important.
They're
or
basically
anything.
the mercenaries in the original games. But yeah, they stopped doing the convergent storylines and start doing their own thing.
And on one hand, I understand that's kind of like
didn't do it either. So,
oh yeah, that's And on one hand, like that's sort of a limitation of just the format of these games. As these games get bigger, graphics get bigger, you just literally cannot put more stuff in there. But I feel like it's kind of it's too bad because I do like a game that you can replay from just a different perspective.
You would love 6 because that totally has. Or Revelations 2 is actually what I meant to say.
Well,
6 does have multiple
6
narratives,
as well,
but
actually.
2 actually the way the storytelling works is the 2 separate characters that you get to play as are doing different things, sort of.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool.
They're not with each other the whole time or at all. I don't think.
No, actually, so it's actually 2 different times in the island. So Barry Burton is actually in the past, and Claire's in the present.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
We should probably start wrapping up. Any last thoughts or feelings on the RE series, as fans call it?
I really like it. This is the reason why I did this Topicast is because I really enjoy Resident Evil as a series. For the most part, there of course are some bad games, there are some good games, there are some great games.
Well, when you start to add up the numbers, there's always going to be some missteps.
It's true. Like I said, there are 21 individual entries into the series.
Which just seems nuts to me.
That's excluding like the remakes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Technically, it's 26.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of re-releases and that kind of stuff, but there's a lot more individual properties here. Like there's light gun games, there are third-person squad games in this game and the series. There's like the mercenary stuff that gets released on its own at points too. Yeah, this game series has a lot to it. Like, and honestly, the history of it is, son.
Keep going.
All right, the history of it is also very robust and interesting as well. And if you want to look into the actual world of Resident Evil, yeah, like just the story, while convoluted, well, while becoming convoluted eventually, I should say.
Sure.
Does at least start off with a semblance of, direction and plot and intrigue. Again, it eventually just ends up kind of being a mess. But, again, once you're running a series from, 97 until 2015, it's going to get a little messy here or there.
Yeah, we're getting close to 20 years for the series now, aren't we?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Yep.
So I think that probably just like an ending point. Where would you guys like to see the series go at this point?
I almost want to say I just kind of wanted it to stop, but
No, that's fair.
But
Take a break or something.
But I could use more. Like I haven't really played Revelations 2 yet, so I will see after I give that a shot.
Yeah, okay.
But at the same time, I can say for certain that I want them to kind of rein the series in a little more, and kind of bring it back to just being like a little less convoluted. Just kind of leave it as a very straightforward, I'm going to go do this thing in a mansion, not even just a mansion, in this area somewhere.
Hell, release another game that you're just fucking around in a mansion again. Like that's fine. It just depends on what the context is.
Yeah, I think where I would want to take that would be mostly cut ties to the old characters. Like, not completely, but just fucking, just say, hey, you're playing this game, you're now the, B Squad stars, and Jill, and Chris, and Leon, they're all the A-Team star members, and they're off doing this other stuff. You're doing this smaller side story, so that they could rein it back in a bit, and get rid of a lot of the convoluted stuff.
Yeah.
They could have a game that doesn't have to ever once mention the Umbrella Corporation, because, hey, you're these other characters who weren't involved in all that stuff. You're just off here doing this other thing, so...
Actually, the true best part would be if Hunk finally got his own game, and at the very end takes off his mask to reveal that it's Solid Snake. Kept you waiting, huh?
Dun-dun-dun-dun. Dun, dun.
Bedtime. I think that's all we have to say about Resident Evil.
No! Don't go!
Well, not just yet. Before you go, make sure to rate us on iTunes and listen and subscribe to our Stitcher, and go to our Patreon and give us money. You rat bastards. Right now.
See you, everyone!
Bye, guys!